Hey everyone, I am Rafi Salem, and today we get to speak with the founders, the brilliant minds behind FranDestiny, Linda and Marc Cayle. Um, let's start off with an intro. Linda and Marc, tell us about FranDestiny. Tell us about a little background. I heard just recently you guys met when you were teenagers. Is that true? And did you start your first um, franchise when you were teenagers? So why don't you take it away?
This is true. The rumor is definitely true. We met when I was 15, he was 17, and yeah, high school sweetheart. So we've been around the block. We know each other inside and out, and now we are business partners, which is the best. And a lot of people say, can you really work with your husband? And can you work with your wife? And for us, it absolutely works. And that parlays right into the franchise world because husbands and wives really make great franchisees. So, how we started franchising was we were both in corporate in our early years. We did the traditional, you get your, college degree, you get the internship, and it turns into a job. And we followed that path, realizing that it really wasn't for both of us. And we found ourselves in the franchise world. And it opened up the doors to freedom of calendar, freedom of cash, control over your destiny. And out came so much passion that didn't even feel like work. So we turned it into franchise consulting so we could help other people realize their dream too. And that's how it all began.
Yeah, I was actually working with insurance and sold the policy to a emerging franchisor and helped him put his franchise company together. And then also we became multi-unit franchisees ourselves and ran that for 10 years. So we've been franchisor, franchisees, as well as consultants. So we walk the talk and can help people through everything.
So what fascinates me throughout my life and my career, I've noticed just in passing that sometimes a famous person will own a former sports athlete will own like 10 Taco Bells, 10 Dunkin' Donuts, and it it baffled me. Like, where do you go from being, like you said, married couple, um, or a, a retiree, or a sports person? Like, how do you go from point A to point B? Give us a little more background.
So certainly with the professional sports players, I mean, these people are listening to their advisors who are telling them to diversify their income portfolio, right? Because their career in sports is not going to last forever. So you look at someone like Shaq, who owns, I don't even know guys. Um, Linda's family was friends with
Yeah,
a
one of the
former Bucks
Bucks
player,
player.
was a Milwaukee Bucks player who made a fortune doing
Wendy's.
basketball, but he
Wendy's.
owned
Owners of Wendy's.
hundreds of Wendy's. And that's how he made his money. And so, these people are actually doing the right thing. And the people who are in sports that go broke don't do that. And so you hear that a lot too.
So let's take it back to the regular people who aren't sports
Mhm.
athletes, and my wife and I, we have separate careers. Never even thought about it. But you mentioned that you were working in corporate, and then did you wake up one day and say, "Honey, are you happy? Honey, are you happy?" Like, give us a give us a little insight into how
It
that
was
happened.
the first day. I think that when I came back from lunch and my boss was looking at his watch, that was it for me. I said, there's just no way I can be dictated to of how I'm going to run my day. And especially even down to how long I get a lunch. I just couldn't wrap my head around that. And I think I went home and just told Linda, I said, I can't do this. And we had an alternative with franchise.
With franchising, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My father never worked for corporate. It felt natural for me when Mark said, "Hey, let's jump ship from corporate and let's just all in." We were younger. We had drive. I had the vision because I saw my dad be successful, control his own destiny. He worked very hard, however. We call it the hard easy. Work hard now, build it up, you know, work really, really hard, roll up your sleeves so that you can have that easy life down the road that can incorporate so much freedom to be there for your kids when they need you. I couldn't fathom the thought of asking a boss, can I take off? My kid is sick, and then I have to use one of my sick days. It just didn't compute. And that's the way we ran our franchises too. When we owned them, we never docked people for being sick. Or if they had a kid that had a soccer game on Thursday at 3, go have fun, go and enjoy your kid. So that freedom, and I think I think a lot of people are looking for that.
That's that is that's really cool to hear. As an entrepreneur myself, I that totally resonates with me. I don't want anyone looking at their watch when I come back from lunch. I don't want to have to take off a sick day. And the funny thing is, like you say, the hard easy. I will take my phone with me on vacation. I will take my laptop with me on vacation. But because I have such a great relationship with my clients, they understand. They get it. And they're like, Rafi, what are you doing? Just we'll see you tomorrow, or we'll see you next week. And I love that attitude, and I love your background and how you got there.
Yeah.
Let's shift into what's going on now in the franchising industry. Like I had mentioned before, um, all I know is Taco Bell and Dunkin' Donuts. Mark, I don't know if you cut out on the recording or not. What were you saying about Shaq? What does he own?
He owns multiple concepts and multiple locations of those concepts. I don't remember which franchises he owns, but he owns a lot, like a lot, a lot. So it's actually how he's making most of his money now, I think. So
Incredible,
um,
incredible. So
these
what's going on now in the industry?
Well, I think right now, uh, some trends you can find is that there are tons of layoffs, and I call them corporate refugees. And that's what they are. They've dedicated their entire lives to their corporation. They've built the wealth of their corporation instead of building their own personal wealth. And so what's happening is there's a lot of layoffs, tons of layoffs. And these people were ready for retirement in 5 years, sometimes 1 month, and they've lost everything and they don't know what to do and they're panicking. They don't want to go back to corporate. They're experiencing ageism. They can't get the same salary that they once were accustomed to because young kids right out of college are eating up those positions for half the salary, and so they find themselves the only alternative to achieve that salary and more, and to really make money quickly to achieve that retirement that they had set for themselves is I've got to own my own franchise. I've got to own my own business. And so it looks in so many different ways, for those types of people. And then you have the young ones, which are the millennials. They are already on that bandwagon. I am so impressed that it didn't take those young minds 30 years to dedicate to a corporation to figure it out. Like they're figuring it out right now. I've worked with some 25-year-olds and some young 30-year-olds. And so I think that's the trend, is to create your own destiny instead of just hopping on that corporate bandwagon.
I mean, I got this seasoned person who's learned, whether it's School of Hard Knocks or they already have an MBA, whatever it might be, but these people make wonderful franchisees because they understand that they want to build their own culture. They want to say, okay, I know what I wouldn't do and how I wouldn't treat my employees. And so they make the switch.
Yeah. One other another trend that we see too is essential businesses from COVID. So COVID, there's always a silver lining of everything. COVID was awful, but if there's something good that came out of it, there's an entire category of franchises that are called essential businesses. So if you're an essential business and you have a low risk investor and they're just nervous, well, give them an essential business. So no matter what economic climate, no matter what happens with a pandemic, you're going to have a brand that is a necessity. It's a need, not a want. And they're the ones that were on the road while we were all locked up in our homes, but they were still trimming trees and HVAC and plumbing and all the outdoor types of home services.
Yeah.
100%.
And also, what we're seeing is another trend where early on we just had to show people recession resistant things. And now all of a sudden it's pandemic resistance and Amazon resistance. So the trends that we're seeing are different than a while ago because obviously you've got the pandemic resistance in addition to recession resistance. And now we're seeing Amazon resistance as well. And so the franchisors that are not doing anything about being Amazon resistance, there's going to be some trouble brewing there. And it's really interesting because some franchisors actually launch microsites for their franchisees. So if they have a retail store and someone goes and buys a product within their zip code, they get a piece of the action on that for doing nothing, which is one way that the franchisors are sort of, combating this Amazon issue.
Um, what you're saying is so smart because I was a waiter. I was a busboy and a waiter at a catering hall through high school and college. And one of the older waiters said to me, "It's so good that you are number one developing this work ethic when you're younger, but number two, if you work in the food industry, you will never go hungry." It was such a like what did I know? I was 17, 18. And when he said this to me, I'm like, going hungry. I've never thought about that because, if you're, let's just say, middle class, growing up in your parents' house, maybe you needed a job when you were a teenager or in high school or something like that. But the concept of going hungry is not something it's not something that you would ordinarily even fathom. And when you say recession proof and when you say pandemic proof, it should really hit home to some people that you're not just in charge of your destiny when you're a business owner. Um, you're going to be able to eat. Um,
Exactly.
I took
so
that literally in college and I worked at a really good restaurant. I
yeah,
ate like a king.
so we talked about the essentials. So there's food, shelter, clothing. I'm very curious in terms of franchising. What are the what are you seeing? What have you seen in the past? What are you seeing now? Have the trends for the top franchise opportunities changed? Like food, shelter, clothing. There's beauty. There's HVAC. Tell me about before COVID and now.
So I'll let you jump into in a second, but
Okay.
there's for me, there's three major categories, right, that people will absolutely spend money on no matter what. Kids, pets, and their parents. So you've got kid-related things, whether that's enrichment programs, whatever it might be. You've got pet, anything related to pet. If you have a pet, you know how much you spend on your pet. And your aging parents, there's nothing that people won't do for them. So those three categories are no-brainers for me.
Yeah. And I think with COVID too, really open people's eyes to what they were pent up with, right? They had pent up, built up demand where they took life for granted in a way. Life was easy. Life became very hard. So the little things like getting waxed, going to the salon, and that's all my daughter talked about was we all had a family joke. What's the one thing you want to do? Mine was I wanted to see live music, right? My daughter's I just can't wait to get waxed, so That's what she wants. But those are, and the workouts, people, really, you could work out at your house, you could have a class online, but there's nothing that replaces being in a group, the energy that you feel when you're next to someone. They ran out of their homes and into the studios again to do their workouts. They liked going. They liked being camaraderie with their, with their friends and being in the same spot. So that, I think, revived the franchise industry, and all of the people flocked to them. So that pent up, built up demand, 100%.
It would not surprise me if there's a lot of Peloton bikes that are now acting as a clothes hanger.
For
That
sure.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So you guys have told me about the past. You've told me about the present. You know what question I'm going to ask next. What is the future? What is the future of franchising? I am going to say it. I'm going to cross what's it called when you cross the glass window, or in our medium when you go into the um, crash the window or something. I'm going to talk politics for a moment. We just got a new president in the United States. Economy is one of the biggest things on people's minds. So obviously we're not talking about politics here. We're talking about economics. So I'm
Mhm.
very curious how that ties in, how the future looks to FranDestiny.
I love that question because everybody asked that question. And we've been around since the year 2000. So we've seen 2009, we've seen the crash, we've seen COVID, we've seen how many presidential changes. And here's the one constant is franchising. It never changes. It's constant. And that's what we love about it, because in a downswing, I'll give you an example. Instead of going to your high-end salon to get your hair cut and spend $150 to $200 on a cut and color for a woman, right? You're going to Great Clips and you're spending $15 for a haircut. So during 2009, those downswings, the crash, people saw themselves trying to budget, but that exploded the franchise industry. If you have a great economic climate, then that's the opportunity where people feel safe, where they say, "I'm going to take the leap now." But here's what's static throughout all the different presidential candidates that's ever been in office right now is that the target market never changes. The target market that franchising usually targets is the family or the person with disposable income. And no matter what happens, whoever's in office, they're never giving up their bougie, treatment, or they're never going to give up the experience for their child, or the education for their child, or the enrichment for their child, or their dog, or whatever it is. And so if you focus more on the target market and knowing that that target market has disposable income, it really doesn't matter who's in office, to be honest.
Yeah, we have candidates that say, I'm going to hold off on looking at franchises until after the election. Well, the world's going to still spin the same way after the election. These things are not
Yeah.
going to change. So, there's two types of fear. There's rational fear and irrational fear. Rational fear is easy. It's just lack of knowledge, right? That we can get people educated, and then that kind of fear goes away a little bit. But irrational fear, like waiting to see who's going to become president, is this doesn't make any sense. That's just plain old irrational fear. So,
Got it.
these things all pass.
All right. As we wrap up, this is not a trick question. This is a one takeaway. I always whenever we end these things, I always say, what is the one takeaway? If someone catches this podcast, vlogcast, YouTube video, I need a soundbite. What is the one takeaway, Linda, and then Mark? What's the one takeaway people should take away from this recording?
Oh, let's see. I think the one takeaway would be is start getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And the first way you could start with that, explore educate and learn, and then make a decision. No one needs to make a decision right away. You can explore, educate, make an intelligent decision. And the only way to do that is to combat some of your fear. And the only way you combat fear is gaining knowledge, because the lack of knowledge creates fear. So start getting uncomfortable. That's what I say.
Wow,
Yeah.
you really went deep there. I wasn't looking for deep thoughts, but Marc, what do you
Well,
say?
I'll continue that theme then. And the fear will never go away. And I tell people, if you're not scared, you need a psychiatrist. This is like a big deal. Like this is a big decision. And I think, there's a book out there that says feel the fear and do it anyway. That's the soundbite I would leave, is that the fear is never going to go all the way away. So you just do it anyway.
All right, that sounds great. All right, everyone. Once again, I'm Rafi Salem with FranDestiny. Linda, Marc, Cayle, thank you so much for joining us today. And we will see you next time on the FranDestiny channel.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Rafi.
Rafi.